Hi, you're watching The Tattooed Psychic, and I am the Tattooed Psychic. And today I'm very happy to introduce my guest, my guest, Liz Mayer. And say hi, Liz.
Hi,
Liz, I
thank you
was
so much
checking
for
you
having me.
out, and you're from the Psychic Farm. You created the Psychic Farm. Let's start there. So that's how people would be able to find you on social media, or
Yeah, that's the easiest way to find me on Facebook is a Psychic Farm, and that's kind of a project that's still I'm still figuring out what the heck that means, honestly.
well, I think we'll
But
look at that today because I think I have some messages for you. But that being said, when I looked at your website or your Facebook page, and your website, I think there is something there because I saw videos. But I was like, wow, this person does a lot of things, and you're amazing. I just want to
uh,
start that off. And your spirit is so bright and loving, and I just love it so much. And I
uh,
find that even spirit says that you were sent here to be a unique person. You know, you're very unique in your presentation. That being said, we've got a lot to cover with you because you are this amazing person. But when I first clicked on your page, I saw the Psychic Farm, and I was just like, what is this? And it is this great concept of teaching people about farming and psychic work.
yeah, absolutely.
So
My
talk
two
about
of
that.
my big passions. Yeah, so I don't know. I saw some throwaway post by a friend of mine that said the future belongs to those who can combine their dreams and make them into something, some good reality. I can't even remember the quote. It was such a throwaway quote. But for some reason that's that thought of like combining everything I'm passionate about being critical for me. And the psychic interest is one of those things that just keeps nagging on me over the years. It's easy to ignore it for a few years and get
Right.
very mundane and realistic in all of this. But it just keeps calling to me, it was the great liberation when I first sort of went down the rabbit hole, as we say, um, of like, there's a lot of things that we think aren't real that are totally real. So what am I going to get into based on what really calls to me? And so that was one. And then the other one was the idea of being able to know what you can actually eat. Um,
Right.
and being responsible for that. And like, you could spend your time worrying about, well, is the government going to take away all my money and all my food and all of this? Well, they can't really take away your knowledge, and it really makes you more of a complete entity, a complete organism. Like most most critters out there can go in the forest and they can, for the most part, know what they can and can't eat. They know how to find their own food. But humans, if it wasn't in a grocery store, they can't. And that disconnect. I'm also very into the Ringing Cedars of Russia series. Um, and that's all about being connected with the land, and kind of just going back to your natural side. And so these two things called to me, and I wanted to combine them somehow. I also think we're living in a time when a lot of us, when we get into the spiritual stuff, we want to talk about these big heroic creatures that we wish we could identify with, right? I mean, for me, I've got my orca, obviously, right?
Right.
This majestic creature. Um, but most of us probably really identify better with little farm animals. We're farmed animals in a way. And I
I
think that
just
there's
love
lots of
you. I
wisdom.
love how you
Yeah.
think.
Well, thank you. Yeah, um, I also think it's when we're doing um, any of the work with, whether we're trying to give somebody a reading, or we're just going within and we're trying to do a meditation within or whatever. Um, uh, yeah, we go fanciful, but we're in holographic reality where you take any part of the reality and you can get information about the whole reality from it.
Right.
So you know, you don't have to go dreamland with it. You can go realistic. You can go in your own backyard. And I'd have lots of things happen at this farm I used to work at, called Keep It Simple Farm, that closed. And that's where I learned about all my farming stuff and got really passionate about teaching people about that. I taught classes on raising chickens and growing plants and things like that. And um, we'd have interesting things happen. Like, we had one year where we kept having eye injuries. It was We kept having birds with one eye. We had a staff member that like had a cornea fall off. Like, is kept happening over and over, so there was obvious wisdom to be learned from the farmed nature around us. And I've been, reading a lot of that for a long time, like I think what weeds grow around us can really tell us what's going on. There's so many plants and animals that are, I mean, it almost seems like they're designed to help us and to be one with us.
Absolutely.
And you'll see if you learn about, like I've been learning about wild edibles and medicinal plants that just grow up like weeds, and they're plentiful, they're everywhere. It gave me a great sense of food security because I could go in my backyard and see, holy cow, 75% of the plants out here I can eat if I need to.
Right.
Like I don't have anything really to worry about. Abundance is everywhere. And it taught me that. Well, you go to, we see the weeds growing out in certain places, and you'll see by a hospital and it'll be all these medicinal weeds, as though the plants are like, we know people here need this. Or, in growing in concrete where there's lots of pollution, you get the plants that are good at cleaning that stuff up.
Right.
And so, there's so much to be learned from any of that. And you could give someone a tarot reading, or you could go and see what plants are growing in their backyard. And I kind of want to I want to combine those energies somehow.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I also just want to be able to approach any everyday task that we might have, whatever it is, right? Are we a farmer? Are we a teacher? Whatever we are, right? But incorporate the psi component because it's so lost and we're doing it all the time anyway. You're manifesting all the time anyway, whether you know you are or not.
Right, I agree.
Right. And I think a lot of people use their intuition in ways they don't realize they have. Like, oh, I just made a lucky guess. Like maybe you did, but I feel like we're using it all the time. So like we would be, if we want to be the full beings that we came here to be, we need to know what we can and can't eat. And we need to know how to use our entire bodies, so you wouldn't run around with, your eyes closed all the time. So why not, if you're working a farm, use dowsing to find something that's lost, that kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, just sort of this combination of these two things. And so the psychic farm is just sort of wherever I am. It's currently in Darrington now. And I'm hoping to grow that idea more and more. I
have a feeling you will, because in my training, I was taught to talk to trees. Now, trees hold so much knowledge for the earth and these things, and it's quite amazing experience when you have it, and you're able to connect on that level. I'm sure you are. But also what I find is more and more people are looking for this type of thing. More and more people, we're in this time right now, and it's so interesting right now because, they shot down UFOs and these, these crazy things are starting to happen that we all knew were going to happen, right? We knew that these beings were going to manifest. I mean, I did. I'm sure you did too. They're already here. Yeah, I think you're one of them even. So do you understand what I'm saying? It is. These people are here trying to educate people on how to save the planet, basically. And that's what I've seen is this influx of people who are really wanting to save the planet, especially the younger generation that is way more knowledge than my generation. I have conversations with 20-something-year-olds that I'm like, holy crap. How do you know all this? It took me years to study this stuff, and you're just like, oh yeah, this is nothing, blah, blah, blah,
right.
And it's so interesting to me. And so I love this idea that you're doing that, because here's how I see it, and I want to get this message to you for whatever reason. I feel you can't fail with this, because what you're doing is so in sync with the universe that it's just going to be a natural flow of expansion once you get out of the what spirit calls the cycle of I don't know. Once you realize that it's not about knowing anything, people always say, Faye, how did you do your show? Because years ago I did a live psychic show, and I would just read people left and right and talk to people passed on, and everyone's like, how did you do that? I don't know how I did that. All I know is I just do it, and I trust spirit that much that they'll do the right work for that person in front of me, that I don't even question it, because it's so natural. It's so trusting I have with this, you know. It's like, I know spirit's not going to let this person down because spirit's love and they
Mm.
want to help this person. So I'm just happen to be the loud voice they use. That's it. I don't know shit. You know what I mean? All I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing is keep learning about myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that more and more people are doing that now.
For sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
they've stepped out of religion. They stepped out of the things they were taught to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, I want to be me. And part of
Yeah.
being ourselves is unveiling that spirituality and connecting with the earth, just like you're saying. It is. It's
For
part
sure.
of being that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
easy
it
to
doesn't mean we can't
detach.
still use tools and technology and things like that. Like,
Right.
I think farms are, they have the potential to be dark places where death happens, true.
Very
Um,
true.
but they have a wonderful potential to be this great co-creative moment. And you know, a lot of times they run smoother and easier when things are allowed to be themselves and everybody works together and kind of knows their
Yeah.
job. And we've bred these amazing animals that will take on duties so passionately, while so many of us can't find anything we're that passionate about, you know. But a rooster protecting his hens, oh my gosh, the duty, the passion, it's so amazing to see that. And or just, you know, the divine masculine embodied in this little bird that, you know, people
So
think nothing
powerful.
of.
Right.
These courageous, intense creatures, and you know, and they wear beauty all over themselves, you know. So farms are this great place where technology, where order and chaos, where masculine and feminine really can come together in a way that's so, you know, has potential for such expansion and is such a human thing in so many ways. You know, it's our way of being stewards. You know, we instead of just
Yeah.
you know, you can live one with the animals, but are you really being a human living at one with the animals? You know, you're different than a dog. You're different than whoever, you know. And yeah, farms really embody that. And for me, that's been an important realization. That's like what the farm gave me. Before the farm, I was very anti-tech. Um, you know, I thought we needed to abandon everything, all the modern stuff. But then when I saw the farm in action, I really saw how that side's not really inherently evil or bad or anything, and it doesn't do you any good to be opposing it. You know, much better to take advantage of the amazing tools that human brains have developed, but use them in a way
Absolutely.
that also is in line with
Well, without
the
it,
heart.
we wouldn't be doing this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
It
know,
is.
yeah. And I judged that for many years. So
Me
yeah.
too. I actually did too, Liz. I was anti YouTube channel. I was like, because Spirit kept saying, this is how you have to do it, though. And I'm like, I don't want to do it that way. You know, I don't like being in the public eye. I learned that as the tattooed psychic doing that show. It was horrific for me. It wasn't a great experience. People
Hmm.
acted really strange around me. Once they see what you can do, it's very different, you know. So I
Yeah.
left, but then this surge of awakening happened in the past few years, and Spirit brought me back to work, and many other healers who left. We're the crones, and we had just abandoned Spirit because we were tired of it. You just go, we can't explain this to people anymore. We're tired. We need to go be ourselves, you know. And then Spirit goes, yeah, but we trained you so hard, you know, you got to get back to work. And they always pull you back, you know that. They always pull you
Yeah.
back to that place where you're supposed to be, whether you like it or
Absolutely.
not. But what I found is I'm actually enjoying it this time around because I get to meet people like you and other people who I feel are genuine, where a few years ago it might not have been that way for me. It was more about the money and the, do you understand? It wasn't, people weren't doing it for the right reason. And
Mm.
that really bothered me. But that being said, including myself after a while, that being said, yeah, it's hard. And it's hard to be, as you know, you might know this, but it's hard to be spiritual in a world so human sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like you have to stay, you came here to be in the 3D reality where we are, right? And so you have to you have to not be completely attached to the spirit side in order to do that. Yeah, it's so hard. It's such a constant balance.
It really
I
is. I
think
was
that,
talking about that this morning because I was getting off balance, and then I drew some cards, and Bridget and stuff came up, and Diana, and they were like, "Come on, this is ridiculous. You got to always stay in that," but it's so hard.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I
And
think that's why people abandon it. I do. I feel that people abandon their work and their spirit because it is hard to
and
maintain.
it's easier when you can go all one way or another, you know, like when you're
Yes,
having in the middle of a breakthrough and you're at a retreat or something and you're in some artificial
yes,
environment essentially where you can just go full, you know, you can go full crown chakra and it's okay. And you can be completely just you can be oblivious to everything that's going on in 3D for a while. It's easy when you can go one side or the other, right? Because we're in this
absolutely.
reality binary universe where we want to blink on and off. And so when you can blink
Right.
on and off, it's always feels like an easier path. But ultimately that's not true. You know, it's just this game we're all playing here. And it's a fun game. It really is, you
And you have
know.
to look at it that way. When we do perceive it as a game, right? It becomes easier, honestly. Like, oh, if I can play a game and create the world I want, what do I want? This is going to be fun, you know? And I think that that's getting to that point is the struggle. It's because we're, like you said, we can, it's so much more comfortable to live in the past and not know because it's easy, you know? And you're right, when we're at those spiritual retreats, we're like at our best, like, oh yeah, this is it. But I always steer away from people who walk in spirit all the time. It drives me nuts. It's like, where's
Mm-hmm.
your ground? You have to stay grounded for me. That
Yeah.
being said, you know, I love the idea of the psychic farm, but there's so much about you. I want to kind of move on because I want to talk
Yeah.
about music as healing too, because there's different energies of healing. There's definitely the earth, plant healing, the trees healing, all of that. But there's also that healing of the spirit, I guess, the healing of the consciousness, the healing of being able to, with the power of music, right, is so powerful because it can literally remove you from a situation that maybe you're unhappy in, or maybe you need to go through when you hear a heartbreaking song, or
Mm-hmm.
you hear a
Mm-hmm.
song that's so beautiful and brings you back to a time in your youth and you have that happy moment of, oh, I remember her. We had this. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's how powerful music is. And
Yeah,
I'm blown
absolutely.
away by that.
Yeah.
And you do
Music's
music.
amazing. Yeah, the creative force in general, you know, honestly, this just popped in my head just now as we're talking. I don't understand it. I love when I started off with writing poetry, you know, back in high school, and I loved how I would all of a sudden sort of channel a poem. I would all of a sudden get an idea for a poem. And I certainly wasn't really like into the psychic stuff back then. I still would have considered it channeling because that was how creativity always was to me. It was this muse, it was this more ephemeral thing. Um, but yeah, I love that feeling. And at that time, I was just freely creating. I wasn't hung up on trying to send a message or doing anything. And so my art was just me, and it was a great expression for me. And I don't understand why that's so important for us to do, really. But it's wonderful. It's
Yeah.
wonderful that we get to do that. But but yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, I you know, well, I guess I don't understand it any more than I understand skin cells. Why can't we just have replenishing skin? Why does we need to shed our skin? You know, like it's these great mysteries that, well, you know, I'm sure on one level I do understand it and it all makes sense. But you know, if I really am honest, I don't
Right.
understand why creativity needs to happen. But I've approached my own music. So I've got two projects right now. I've got my band that's been going on for a long time called Safeword Sasquatch. And I kind of named that tongue in cheek. My partner at the time and I were trying to come up with a name, and we just liked alliteration in general. And I have been known to let my hair grow. The beard is new, but you know, my other body parts I've let grow, and so I just joked about. I was kind of teasing myself about being into exploring my own sexuality, but also letting my hair grow out. But also, we were both. You know, he introduced me to little concepts like, uh, I guess, conspiracy theories is what he introduced me to, and
Oh, yes.
I always thought those were so ridiculous, and anybody that gave those time of day were just so ridiculous. And then I finally sat down and watched what some of the crazy people were saying about 9/11, and was like, holy crap, I have
Right.
been wrong. so
When you start
wrong.
peeling the onion back, it gets quite interesting.
And I was so arrogant and cocky about it too. And so it was this huge shift for me. And so what Safeword Sasquatch kind of meant would be like this modern world and all the lies that are everywhere, and just all this craziness. If there was like a safe word we could have to just make it all stop, and we
Right,
could just go live in a cave and be separate, like Sasquatch maybe is that safe word.
right,
So it comes from more from those. Also just some brief research into Sasquatch phenomena in general. Um, by the gentleman whose name I can never seem to remember, but he's an anthropology professor. He was over at Wazoo. And I read his book on Sasquatch, and that was another thing that blew my mind because I studied anthropology in college. And so I was like, his analysis is actually making a really good
right.
points here. Yeah. And so just being open to all of that stuff and not just being, embracing that stuff and getting to really delve into it and not just say any of that is stupid. Instead, looking at it with eyes of like, well, what do the people who really believe in this have to say? Why are all these cultures talking about this phenomenon? Why are there so many different prints? Why are there, like, how would
Same
you
with
actually be able to?
aliens and UFOs, right? From the
Yeah,
beginning of time, they've documented UFOs. And
exactly. And we like to take ancient wisdom and say, oh, but that was before science, and so we didn't know what we were talking about. But anthropology opened my eyes before I was really down the rabbit hole to seeing that science is just one more way of looking at the world. It's not actually sacrosanct. It's still a
right,
cultural based way of looking at the world. And if many cultures all interpret separate phenomenon in similar ways, but they don't really have a similar ideology, that
right.
says a lot more to me than a scientist saying, "Oh, Occam's razor. Is it really likely that that happened?" Well, I mean, all things are never equal, so
Right.
Occam's razor doesn't really cut it. So, but anyway, so my band name, Safeword Sasquatch, it has many layers. So this project kind of came out of the whole conspiracy theory, looking at that stuff vibe, and we've put out now our second album finally last year. We finally put out, and the band leader Eric Weber wrote most of the songs to that. And so it's been about him just communicating his stuff and me getting to tag along and play cello and do vocals and play
I love
bass.
that.
Yeah, and I've learned all my music really through him over the past decade, doing that. And then during COVID, I had the time to really study piano, and so I picked up piano. And I'm now working on my own project. There were a lot of really talented musicians with nothing to do. And fortunately, Ken Stringfellow of the Posies,
Right.
and he was in REM for a while. He recorded some albums with REM. He was a workaholic. He's a great guy. He's had some not great media stuff show up on him in the recent, but um, we're just all kind of going through that right now. I think we're having our skeletons are coming up alive and being like, you got to take care of me now. You got to, and he's impressed me a lot. With how he has stood up and said, yeah, I messed up. I got to get off of wine. I got to stop womanizing. And he's been super professional to me in the studio and a great mentor to me. Like
I love
I
that.
come in
Yeah.
there, I come in there
Hey,
and
listen, we all make mistakes.
right.
We have to
Yeah.
forgive each other. I know I have. I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
And we're all embarrassed by some things we've done in the past. I know I am. I'm sure you are. And the key to becoming a better human being and spiritual person is forgiveness. And you have to look at the person as a whole. What are they really doing? And I know I don't know that person personally, but I know that they've helped a lot of people on their path, and that's really, everyone has their own demons, and God, bless him for facing those demons. It's not easy, man. So
For real.
amen for
Yeah.
that. Props
Yeah.
to him for doing that. And because I know it's not easy. It wasn't easy for me either.
Yeah. Yeah. But and he's done it, and I'm grateful that he was a workaholic because when COVID hit, he wanted to keep working, and there were so many musicians that were terrified of working at all.
Right.
They didn't want to risk losing their voice or something like that. And so even with Safeword Sasquatch, our drummer didn't want to even record with us for the first few months. And so we had to wait until a time when we could get her in there, and things like that. But fortunately, since it was just me and my partner, largely otherwise, we were one little group. And so we were able to sneak in there. And he was just charging a song for for what he was doing. So we got really lucky and were able to record the Safeword Sasquatch album. And then I sort of dipped my toe into my own songwriting. And that was wonderful. And for me, my songwriting has been a sort of a shamanic level experience, sort of the healer heal thyself kind of a thing. I would oftentimes have an audience in mind for a song I was writing, but really it was about, I had this great, before 2020, I had this great feeling of like, I have all these friends. I'm listening to mostly my friends' music for a decade now. I was totally out of the pop music, even knowing what songs were what, you know. And I loved singing my friends' songs, but I had this like sort of this hollowness in my heart. I knew I needed to sing my own songs too. But I just, songwriting didn't come naturally to me. But once I learned the piano and then I had all that free time during COVID, I just sort of blossomed. And going to the studio, anyone who's just like interested in doing the musician stuff, find a way to go to the studio or make a little studio setup at home. It is so worth it. Because if you spend $500 on 10-hour day, and that's your one shot to record a song, you have to get your act together and practice.
Right.
And then you get to really look at and analyze all your results. But you have somebody helping you who can give you some bedside manner and make you feel really good in the studio. And a good sound engineer will do that because he doesn't want to spend all day doing vocal takes because you have no self-esteem.
Right. Right. I mean, it is. You have to have esteem. Listen, I want to turn you on to a young girl I know. Her name's Ellie Brooks. You can find her on Facebook. And she is a musician, and she records everything at home and has taught herself all of this. And I listened to her. I worked with her, and she posted, "Oh, I've been working on this project." My mind was blown. I was like, "That's you?" Like, she's just this amazing young artist. I think you would love her music. She has, I believe it's keyboard. And like I said, she's doing all of this on her own, like all the instruments, all the voice and producing and all of that. So listen to her. I'll send you a link when we're done with this. But yeah, I would like to get her on the show too. But I love it. You know, you were talking earlier about creativity and why do we have it? And it's been sitting with me because I'm an artist as well. I used to be in a punk rock band and definitely not a musician by any means, right? I'm a great performer. That's what I'll say. I'm a hell of a performer,
punk
but
rock
not
is
a musician.
So liberating. It's
right.
Yeah.
But I paint, and my paintings, I used to be so shy of painting, and I finally just let it go, right? And Spirit said, "Oh, you got to paint really big." So I do. I paint these massively big paintings now. And it's just my therapy. I think what it is, creativity, is therapy. It's a way for us to tap into our subconscious and connect it with our conscious. And I feel it's an outlet that helps us connect with the universe because it's when we're doing our craft, whether it be painting, music, we're so in one with ourselves that we are connecting with that source. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think we have creativity for many reasons, but that being one of the main ones, so we can connect to our source, so we can tones is, as you know, music and tones have been it's science. I always think spirit and science are a lot alike, I'll be honest. I always say that to people. I'm like, spirit's a lot like science. I've studied science and energy, and it's just so connected, energy.
Yeah.
But it's a proven fact that tones heal people.
Yes. And I got so interested in that. There was a phase when Safeword Sasquatch only performed in 432. We tune normally we tune to 444 hertz.
So awesome.
432. And we thought about recording that way, but I wanted to collaborate with a wide variety of musicians, and it's just easier to do 440. And the tones are so important, but I think the most important thing is that creative aspect, that tuning into whatever it is that you're feeling. Like there is so much healing power for some people in angry music. And there's so much healing power for me when I was younger. Music. Yeah. And so if you just go, let's make music that feels great. Like, look at like Rising Appalachian. Everybody freaking loves them. They feel great listening to them. Like, how could you not, right? But it doesn't heal just listening to that isn't the right, it's not the right way to get through to like a kid who is having serious mom problems and they're just full of anger. They're going to hear two notes of that and they can't even resonate with it, right? But you give them a little DRI and suddenly they can change their vibration around and they can get up again and they can feel their fullness. And
Interesting
yeah.
you mentioned DRI. I used to date their original bass player.
Oh, no way. Oh,
unfortunately,
awesome.
he has passed away. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's funny though, because that was one of my first bands I listened to. I listened to punk rock, to be honest with you, Liz, as a younger child, younger teenager, and sang in punk rock bands and grunge bands because of my childhood. I was abused sexually. I grew up in foster homes and I was angry. And when I found punk rock, I was like, my people. I mean, because this was back in the 80s when punk rock was, I think, kind of more violent than it is today, in the sense that we would get bloody in the mosh pits. And there was a lot more violence because we were angry teens. You know, a lot of us grew up in the 70s and we didn't have the best parents. And that being said, that's why I did. And, you know, it's funny as my years of progression, because now I listen to Harry Styles because I just love his music. It makes me happy.
Absolutely.
And I just think he's adorable. I just can't get enough of his face. You know, he's so happy and sparkly. I just love him. So it's funny to see because I'm so much, I don't care anymore. But I listen to all music.
Yeah,
I listen
me too.
to New Orleans jazz. I listen to punk rock still, heavy metal. AC/DC is probably my all-time favorite band in the world. I mean, I can't even talk well enough about AC/DC. And it's that guitar sound. It's sexy. It makes me feel powerful. I'm like, yes.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It makes you horny and powerful. And I love it. Yeah. So I listen to all music. I love it.
So many people are into Shania Twain, I think. Is that raw?
She's hot, no doubt. I don't know if she does anything for me.
Well, no, not. I mean, for me, less. But it's the same. You got Mutt Lange on both, so you got
Harry Styles.
It's just quality writing. There's just such an art to like good pop music and good rock music.
Yes.
That it's so easy to get stuck in whatever lane of music you might have been trained under. And it's sort of like, if you only listened to a piano that was perfectly tuned, right? The music would all sound amazing and you'd probably have an excellent sense of pitch, but only those same 12, those same 12 frequencies repeated octave again and again and again, essentially. Right. There's this infinite spectrum to be had. And it's people like to get in their little comfort zone and it made them feel good. And then they get stuck in their little spiral, right? But gosh, there's so many cool. I love it all. I really, my music partner Eric, who is the songwriter for Safeword Sasquatch, really opened my eyes to the wonders of pop music and punk rock and all of that. And the different genres are liberating in different ways. Like sometimes you need to get. Do you want to like howl and whine and cry, but really have quality music as a woman? Get yourself some bluegrass.
Right.
Do you want to get rid of all of the rules and the rights and how to do things and want to be able to just scream or be angry on stage or just be goofy and imperfect on stage? Go punk rock. I had a project for a while where we were doing goofy covers of comedy and we were able to play we played the Fun House and stuff like that. So we were able to play like fun with other punk rock, but we were like folk punk, right? And I wouldn't have been able to get on stage if it wasn't for that band. I would have been, I played the cello. Like I didn't play the cello Yo-Yo Ma level. The cello is supposed to be this dignified, really in tune instrument. And I got hearing problems. I'm going to be out of tune sometimes. I need to be able to get a little dirty with it. Right. And so punk rock liberated me as just being a mentality that I could, a genre that I could take elements from to be able to bust through the initial, fears I had. And then get way better at certain things. Now I'm buckling down and I'm working on my vocal tone and things like that, which I wouldn't ever worry about in punk rock. So, or folk punk in my case. But yeah, we gotta have the full spectrum. And I think it's easy to get caught up in the snobbery of one thing or another, because once you know it, it's comfort and it's good.
Yeah, I really dislike the people who put down everybody. You know, it's like, and because they're, you know, especially in the punk rock scene, the older punk rock guys, it's like, you know what, you don't have to put down everybody. Not everyone sucks. Actually, you know, I'm going to bring up Harry Styles again because he's a pop artist. And
Yeah.
But if you listen to the songs he writes, they're perfect pop songs. The lyrics are perfect for the pop song. He presents it perfectly because he's just this bubblegum pop artist. And but I like it. But the words, like some of his poetry about the end of the world and all of that, you know, it's kind of like, wow, dude, you're clicking into something, you know, like we've been here before. I was listening to his lyrics. He was talking about how we've been here before and we have to reconnect and all this stuff, you know, and I like that, you know, but he is a pop artist. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. But he's better than some of them that are just, there's nothing in their words, you know, like zero.
Yeah, absolutely. It can get very hollow, you know. Well, like anything, it's tools, right? And so
True.
It depends on who's picking up the tool. I should send you a link to a dear friend of mine who's an amazing pop writer. She's out of Seattle. Her name's Julia Massey. She used to have a band called Julia Massey and the Five Finger Discount. And lyrics, consciousness wise, when I first discovered her music, I'm like, how did I find this friend who thinks all these things? Oh my gosh.
Right.
Yeah, I think you'd really dig her lyrics. She now's in a new project called Warren Dunes. That's got a lot of the same elements. And they've been on KXP a lot, and they're really working very hard to just be good local musicians. They're wonderful people, but they've gone more beachy, entertainment-y, and focused on social issues. She makes sure to do gigs with people of color and things like that, to uplift, use her position to uplift as much as she can. So she's just taken a different turn from where she was before. But she's wild. You ask her what music she listens to, and it's like Harry Belafonte and binaural beats. You know,
got to do it all, man. I mean, that's so great. I love people. They're so great. They can be beautiful or horrible, I guess, you know, just like anything. But yeah, music has always been a part of my life, and there are so many good Seattle bands here. And when I lived in New Orleans, it was always, you hear music everywhere. And oh man, I want to share this story with you because it's so beautiful. This is the power of music. If you go to New Orleans, there's this beautiful woman who plays the violin, and she'll play pop songs, old songs, whatever, man. She's just amazing, beautiful, classical. She'll play whatever. And I don't know if you've ever been to New Orleans, but there's, you know, buildings with the balconies and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And this woman is up on a balcony, and she screams down to the woman, "Hey, play Summertime." And the woman starts playing Summertime on her violin, and the woman's on the balcony singing Summertime in this old bluesy violin. And it's so New Orleans, right? I'll never forget that moment because it was so powerful. It was like music does that. It stopped people in the streets, and it was like a movie or something. This woman's singing from the balcony. And I mean, that's why I love music, because I'm getting emotional just talking about it. It was that beautiful.
Yeah.
That's why she sang it like a pro. I mean, it was stunning.
Yeah, there's something about like the human voice when it really is in the right place at the right time. Right. Oh my gosh, even if it's not perfect. Like you listen to everything you're hearing now is auto-tuned, which clean it up. You're listening to it over and over and over again. Yeah, whatever. It's auto-tune has allowed me, has been liberating to me much the way punk rock has, right? So I only got love for the autotune. But if you listen to like an old Olivia Newton-John record and you hear her imperfections, it's just the human voice when it's really doing its thing and it's in the right place at the right time.
It was amazing.
We are lucky creatures.
We are. I mean, and I think, you know, and that's the whole point of all this. It is just to remind people that we are so valuable and so precious, and each one of us is so unique. And And if we just open ourselves up, we can really change things. Because, and you know this, ever since COVID, I mean, I'm so lucky I grew up in the, when I did, because we had fun back in when I was in my youth. We would go to shows and party, and I might have a 25-year-old daughter, and I'm like, why don't you ever go have fun? I can't, because I have to pay bills and I have to work. I'm like, I'm so glad I grew up when I did, is what I'm trying to say. But
Mm-hmm.
we become so detached and become so isolated, and COVID did not help anything with that. It helped us discover more of our creativity, which is awesome, but it also pulled us away from people, I think. And now people want to connect again. And I think in a way, I guess it was good that we had to be pulled away, because it showed us that maybe we want to connect,
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and it's the waveform. It's the waveform reality we're in,
yeah,
yeah. And down this sort of tantric sexual energy that's always going around. It's always,
right.
sometimes you need to let the charge grow a little bit so you can
Yes.
really have, yeah, yeah.
Yes, and I think that right now is the time, like we were saying earlier, people are reaching out to see people like you and me and other healers I've been interviewing and stuff, to really learn how to live off the earth, because we know this change is coming. Anyone with an intuition knows it's coming. Anyone who's aware and what paying attention knows it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be prepared for that.
Even people who aren't paying attention know,
Something.
they're unhappy with something and they can't quite put a
Right.
finger on it, whatever. We all have these little eating things inside of us. And I knew before I knew, it was just, yeah. And shoot, I mean, I did an event yesterday with I'm staying at Bella Luna's wellness spa, and I'm a practitioner there of Reiki. And we did an event in Darrington here yesterday, and not a lot of people showed up. It was Super Bowl Sunday, which we all were spaced on because we don't pay any for
Who
that.
does? I had
Um,
no idea.
and yeah, so we had soup and bowls, but but we had the first few hours, we were late getting started, but right about the time we were finished getting set up, this one woman shows up, and I could think when she showed up is she feels like she's really humble and small, and she's had this injury that happened to her. But when I connected with her with Reiki, I saw this powerhouse of a person just waiting to come out. And
Right.
um uh it really struck me that, like, I know who my friends are who are here at this event. These are amazing people. So all of these people conspired to put on this event basically for this one person. We didn't know it. We were putting on the event in good faith that it was what we needed to do. We wanted to let people in this area know what energy healing was all about, what alternative things there are out there. um and here she comes up, and it makes me think, who is this person? She finally got here. We've been waiting for her.
That's
We've all,
awesome.
yeah. And then I find out that she could see all sorts of different colored energies while I was doing the Reiki and things like that. And when I started doing Reiki 10 years ago, it was so hard because I couldn't feel a lot. I had to go on faith that it was working, basically. And while that isn't the worst structure for a manifesting healing, it is tricky if you're trying to teach yourself a skill to not have any feedback. And I felt like about a decade ago, I couldn't trust it myself to even get into a space to find people who could give me any feedback. And now I'm just flooded with people coming up who maybe they're not as into it as I've been, because I've been researching this stuff for longer, and been more comfortable with it. Like, psychic phenomena has never struck me as scary at
Yeah.
all. A lot of people are so scared by it. It's just never been that for me. I don't know why. I don't know why. But
Me
so I
too.
haven't had to overcome that block that other people have. Either that or I've repressed the block, and I'll find out.
Right.
But but she had a situation where she couldn't fully explore those things in her because her environment didn't support it. But now she's finally been led to this path and found her way here and found this room full of people who are ready for her. And I keep meeting all these new people who are new to it, but have these skills that many people who maybe have studied wish they could. Like, I can't see auras the way some people can. um
Right.
she's seeing all these energies and all this, and she's been repressing it all this time. I think there's a lot of people out there like that who are in that same boat, and it's been just phenomenal to see them finally come out. And there's these other powerhouse people who have been holding the space the whole time, you know, having drum circles to anchor spirit and things like this. And then finally people are coming in and going, oh my God, I've never felt so free. Oh my gosh, I have this interest I didn't know. You know, oh my goodness, I finally was able to try psychedelics one time, and now my whole world is blown
that's happening
open.
too, right?
Yeah.
And it is interesting. And people of all ages are doing it, which is really cool. And I like that. Excuse me. This cold is just awful. But yeah, I agree with you, and I'm excited about it in a way, you know, and I'm excited for the things. It's a little nervous, you know, living in a world where we don't control the actual world, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And we can only control our world. And I think more and more people are realizing that, you know. But we also have to make smarter decisions as a nation, as far as our politics go. Spiritual people do have to be somewhat aware of those politics as well, you know. We do have to realize that we can't just sit in spirit and go, oh, whatever happens, happens. That's not the proper way. We have to vote, and we have to do the right thing, you know, and get those people in that somewhat believe what we do, and, you know, at least have a little hope.
We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact that we need to do that.
Exactly.
If the whole point was to just be in spirit, why would we leave?
True.
Like, it's the whole point is to not be in spirit for a minute and then go back. You know, you have to
talk about
to be anchored. Yeah, I think the re-anchoring has been a thing I've been experiencing a lot lately. I had a major injury a few months ago, and I've just felt grounded ever since. And yeah, I mean, that's my biggest problem is not being grounded when I get into these things and I go off on a tangent, right? And I'll go into conspiracy theory land or something, and I'll hyper focus on those things.
I do too.
Right? Right? I mean, it's so easy to do.
I got so knee deep in those Idaho murders. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, face, stop. But I couldn't. I was like, oh my God, you know, it was just preoccupying my time. And then I started listening to meditations and stuff, and how the power manifestation works and how to reprogram the brain. And I was like, yeah, I've got to stop feeding my brain this crazy stuff that's non-productive to me. It's not going to manifest the life I want.
Yeah.
So it is. It's easy to do though.
But yeah, you have every tool at your disposal to not do to not drive yourself.
It's right there.
I mean, you just have to do it.
Right.
Yeah,
I do. I listen 4 or 5 hours a day because I have a job that allows me to do that. I'm constantly reprogramming my brain to create the life I want, and these manifestations are slowly happening. But like I tell people, it's not like you sit there and go, oh, I want this to happen, then open your eyes and it happens. That's not how it works.
Not usually. Although sometimes I've been impressed.
Well, sometimes it can manifest that quick, but not all the time.
Right. Don't get hung up on it.
It's more the believing of it. Not sitting there waiting for it. Okay, when's it going to happen?
Well, yeah, if you sit there and wait, then you're blocking your manifestation, because that critical part of manifestation is the releasing. Total releasing. I've been trying to get pregnant for a couple of years, and this year I finally had this moment where it's okay that I haven't gotten pregnant yet. I was really upset, and felt like I was missing out on a critical human experience. And
interesting.
And then earlier this year, I finally was like, you know, maybe I did dodge a bullet, and maybe it's good that I am here where I am now, and I can finally release it. And at that same time, I was really embracing my beard and what caused it. I always knew I had hair there, and I just shaved it off and thought nothing of it. And I didn't think about it was caused by something. Yeah, you have too much testosterone in your body, dum-dum. You've got it, you know, like, so I was able to start addressing that and treating it like, you know, actually paying attention to my body. And I did those two things kind of at the same time. And it's actually an ovarian condition that is likely the cause of this.
Wow, interesting.
It's called PCOS. It's a really, really common. It's like 25% of women. It's so common. Probably 10% of women have the facial hair thing. It might not be like, I have the weirdest little weird pattern. I'm I feel like I'm some little toy poodle or something. I've got this little cute little growth pattern. Most people I know have it just like all over the place, but it's so common. I had no idea it was so common.
Wow, neither did I.
Yeah, and a lot of women, because it's associated with well, all the women's things, the symptoms are all the same as normal period, as being pregnant. All of the symptoms are the same for absolutely everything that could go wrong with the woman. So it can be really hard to sort it out, I think.
Right.
But it's a lot of women only worry about it if they're trying to get pregnant and they can't because they don't ovulate. And so for me, fortunately I do ovulate. I have more of the androgens going on. That's my big way of it manifests for me. But anyway, so I made a bunch of changes to my lifestyle. I started taking supplements to reduce my androgens, which I think was somewhat necessary because I was kind of getting raged out in my old age. And then I made that peace with myself about the having not gotten pregnant. Immediately got pregnant. So I'm 6 months pregnant now.
And I had no idea. Well, isn't that amazing? Because it is. You hold on to something, and that's what I've been really studying lately, is how we hold on to something and how it really blocks us. It really does, because energy has to have a space to flow and manifest itself. It can't. You can't plant a seed and then suffocate it and expect it to grow. It's just not going to happen. It needs air, it needs movement, it needs to be left alone in its natural state so it can grow and become what it needs to become, just like the thought does. It needs that desire. I'm so excited you're pregnant. That's awesome. Wow, what a wildlife that child will have, huh? What an amazing journey that's going to be for that child. And don't be surprised if it's not really super psychic as well. And
I think it's going to have great energy healing capabilities, because ever since I feel like my energy healing has and then I had my injury as well. So it's just I'm looking forward to meeting the kid. I still don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet and all that, but and the dad is also the dad's like a Rajneeshi who's super spiritual and keeps me in check when I'm blocking my own manifestations and things like that. Well,
congratulations. You've got so much going on. It's so exciting, but this has been so much fun. And so tell people where they can find your music, your work, how they can book an appointment with you.
So if you go to bellalunawellness.com, if you'd like to book an appointment with me, you can on there. I need to set up any distance remote stuff. Right now I'm doing in person out of Darrington at the moment. But oh my gosh, talk about an amazing experience. Drive out here, see the mountains, really get steeped in it. Darrington really gives me Shasta vibes. Shasta is this insane magical place. I swear things manifest instantaneously there. But Darrington has a lot of similar vibes. It's just not, it's not branded with soda pop like Shasta is. It's a healing experience just to drive out here. And then we've got this amazing wellness center set up that we're working on and growing and making bigger and better. And so if you're interested in a session, you can book on there. If you're interested in my music, you can also find me at Psychic Farm on Facebook. If you go to Psychic Farm on Facebook, then you can always send me a message through there. That works just as good. And then for my music, Safeword Sasquatch.bandcamp.com. All those tracks are really available on any streaming platform. There's a Spotify channel and all that. And that's more pop rock, maybe a little shoegazy, great stuff. We got Elvis Costello's drummer on 2 of those tracks because he had nothing else to do as well. So it's an amazing record. Yeah, it's a really amazing record.
Why don't you, when we're done, send me a link to that, because I can add a link on my podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my music is on Liz Mayer, Mayer, LIZMAYER at bandcamp.com. Right now, I only have one fully mastered track called Hawk's Flight. that I'm in love with. I love this track. I wrote it reminiscing about high school, and I got one of my old high school buddies to do woodwinds on it, and he's mind blowing. And I'll be releasing the rest of that album soon. I'm at least going to release an unmastered version. I'm just waiting on my mastering to come through, and there's a waiting list with what I chose. So that I don't have on all the major platforms. The only place to find that music is on Bandcamp, lizmare.bandcamp.com. But there'll be more. And then I have some other fun experimental stuff. Like I did the classic song I'll Fly Away in Cherokee up there. And I put some of my frequency. I've dabbled in some frequency music now and again. And so there's a couple of frequency tracks, I believe, up there. If not, they'll be up soon. Yeah. So I've just been having fun with my own Bandcamp. That's and awesome. Just sort of just doing whatever really called to me. Because there's so many different things to do, and I've been learning about the actual producing your own music. You know, I've been kind of writing coattails with my friends who I've just been lucky enough to be able to learn from. And so lately I've been going through and doing that. We also do sound healing therapies at Bella Luna. So I've got a set of solfeggio chimes that are tuned to the different solfeggio frequencies. That's a totally different, for people who don't know that, it's a totally different scale than what you think of as your normal scale with your halves and whatnot. All of the frequencies are, I believe the frequencies are largely 111 hertz apart. And so there's always this 111 hertz sort of binaural resonance that's also happening between any two notes. And then the frequencies themselves are all tuned to different specific frequencies that are beneficial. So anyway, so I can do sound bath kinds of healings with that as well. But where it's really at with me is this Reiki stuff. And I don't do a standard Reiki. I do, when I first discovered Reiki, I was really suspicious of symbols. I got really into David Icke at that time. And he's big on pointing out all these symbols that are basically being twisted and manipulated and used by, the folks who want to make everything poopy, basically. And so I was really suspicious of the Reiki symbols, and I tried to only use symbols that couldn't be twisted. And so for me, this is the infinity symbol, or the torus. It's the shape of the whole universe. So I don't use the same symbols that a lot of Reiki people do. And I've been over this past year, I've been intensely studying with a friend of mine who's kind of developed his own healing system. And for the lack of a better word, I would call it Kuan Yin energy healing, which is the Chinese feminine goddess energy. So very similar energy.
Yeah, I just pulled her card today, actually.
Oh, wonderful! Yay!
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
I pulled it today, but yeah. Well, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
And I would love to have you back on again, maybe after the baby's born, and we can discuss that. But yes, this has been great. So look up Liz Mare on Bandcamp, Facebook, hopefully YouTube channel soon. That's the next step, maybe. And
I do have a YouTube channel as well. It's got a lot of stuff on it. I'm growing it. A DVOD Seattle, which was my original folk punk thing that I did. So there you go. There's old stuff on there. Yeah, I post that occasionally. Yeah.
Okay, well then there you go. Easy access to Liz. So thanks for watching and listening to The Tattooed Psychic. Until we meet again, just remember to be the love you want to see in the world and to be kind to each other. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much.